And I would first of all put this up and speak at the same time, but I can't. I have to do it one by one. Let's just get this done. It takes time. Wake up. I will get there in the end. Many of you will know Open and Agile Smart Cities. We're a global smart city network. We have members. We have over. Let me just get back to the first slide. We have about 200 cities in membership right across the world, but we're particularly strong in Europe. We have the backing of the European Commission involved in quite a few projects in Europe, and the European Commission has consistently supported the minimal interoperability mechanisms as a great way of bringing interoperability across Europe. So I want to give you a quick introduction to the MIMs. They're not the same as the tools you've heard about today. Effectively, what the tools are about is you've got a particular problem, how are you going to solve it? Here's a tool, you implement the tool, and it sorts it out. Now, that's very oversimplified. But with the MIMS, we're expecting you to work a little bit harder. Now, just to go start from the same kind of level that we've just heard about, in fact, we know the key challenge we've got in a city is that there are many organizations, there are many city departments that are gathering data, and the data they're gathering is for particular different use cases. They're not gathering it just to gather data. They've got specific reasons why they're gathering that set of data. And because of the reason they're gathering it, they may use different standards, different formats, different data models, and so on, that are those that are appropriate to the use case that they are trying to deal with. And the challenge, of course, is that when you're trying to use some of the tools that we've been hearing about, and when you're trying to effectively bring this data together and gain insight from it, you've got to address all these many, many complicated interoperability issues. Just as we know, you may use for some use cases geospatial data standards because you need to describe precisely positions, areas, and movements. You may use building information modeling to describe particular aspects of the built environment. You may use NGSIOD, other linked data standards. There are mobility standards. There's all sorts. There's a huge complexity of different ways that different departments, different organizations are gathering data in the city. Here's an example, electric scooter. You may have a situation where the city is wanting to bring together data about the usage of electric scooters in the city, but there may be several providers. And those different providers may use may contribute their data because it's the way they're gathering their data, and they're gathering it not because they're in your city, but because those electric scooter providers are working in many cities, and they've got an overall way of handling data. So they may provide data to you in different formats, use different attribute names, follow different rules for timestamps, location accuracy, and event reporting. And your challenge is somehow you've got to align all of that so that you can get a clear overall picture of where electric scooters are in the city, how they're being used, where they're going, and making sure that they're not doing anything that they shouldn't. So how do you do it? That's one of the many challenges that we have to face in a city, and these are the kind of challenges you're going to have to deal with in the implementation of Urban Flow. Now, I think what's really important when we think about interoperability isn't some sort of weird technical thing that's defined in a very specific way. Interoperability is very practical. It's about, can you bring two or more different systems together to allow them to exchange information and to mutually use that information that has been exchanged. So it's about, can you manage to get insights from data from different sources and to gain extra understanding of what's going on. And what the MIMS aim to do is to provide clear requirements and guidance to enable that to happen. So when you're thinking about interoperability, sometimes we think you're either interoperable or you're not. You've either got a plug and play common standard, you put the things together and boom, they work. Or they're incompatible data sources and you've got a lot of manual integration to do before you can start to bring the information from those two different sources together. But of course, it's not that simple, thankfully. There are many ways that you can, many different actions you can do to help bring the two different data sources to align them in a better way to make it much easier to gain the insights that you need. And that's what we're trying to look at as we're developing the MIMS. Now, as I've said, the MIMS are developed by Open and Agile Smart Cities and Communities and by Living in the EU. Now, initially, the MIMS were based on fairly simple sets of requirements where cities were just beginning to experiment with using data from IoT. And they wanted to make sure that as they developed applications in one city, that other cities could easily use those applications and port them into doing a good job in the other city. And so what we needed to do was to find a common way for cities to collect and manage the very specific kinds of data to enable that to happen. However, things have moved on quite a lot, thankfully. Cities have learned greatly from those early days and are using data in much, much, much more sophisticated ways. And I guess local digital twins are one example of that. And that means that we have to work much more carefully on developing guidance that's going to help provide cities what they need to be able to manage integration of much more complex data sets to provide solutions for much more complex problems. So what we've done, we've worked with ITU-T and we've got a standard recommendation Y4505, which describes a process of developing a MIM. And what that really talks about is you define a clear objective for data sharing. You break that down into a number of specific capabilities that are needed to deliver that. And then you look at how you can describe those capabilities in terms of the sorts of requirements that you can put out to procurement or whatever, really specific, clear-cut requirements. And the thing, of course, is that there are always a number of different ways that you can meet those requirements, different tools, different clusters of solutions, of standards and so on, methodologies that different cities might be using to meet the same sort of requirements. And we call those mechanisms. And, we're doing work on looking at how you can provide interoperability guidance between different mechanisms and how you can test how well each mechanism actually meets the requirements you're looking for. And where we've got to in developing these MIMs, we have 5 foundational MIMs, which describe clear ways how you can access data in an interoperable way, how you can interlink different data from different sources, how you can represent data, how you can secure data, and how you can manage data sharing and collaboration where clear agreements can be made and you can hold users to account to make sure that they're using the data in the way that you require them to do it. So there's a set of foundational MIMs, and then we're working on more specific areas of data management, like personal data management. What are the challenges of that, and how can you do that effectively? How do you manage geospatial data? How do you manage and build local digital twins so that you're not only able to share data, but actually able to share information coming from the models and so on? And we're working on other things. We're looking at the Cityverse. We're looking at other different applications as well. So what we're trying to do is to provide clear guidance for how cities, city organizations can tackle these sorts of issues in a way that's practical and that will really help them achieve their objectives. So the thing that I need to be very clear about is that because we are now aiming to tackle these much more sophisticated data uses in the city, we are in the process of completely remaking each of the MIMs. They work really well, but they work really well for simpler challenges. And what we're trying to do is to make MIMs that will really be appropriate to the challenges that cities are facing today and on into the future. So we don't have a nice set of polished tools that we can simply hand to you. Here it is, and you get on with it. Um, what we're doing is we're working at speed to be able to begin to do that. And we are working with ETSI on an 18-month process to take three of our MIMs and bring them into an ETSI standard. And also we're working with ITUT to look at some of the other MIMs that we're developing. And so therefore, during the course of the Urban Flow project, these will be much more concrete. However, that doesn't mean to say you have to wait, because we're very happy to work with you right now to address your data integration challenges and use the knowledge we'll gain from that to add further details to the MIM. So we're able to work actively with you to help with problems you're facing today, and by doing that, that's going to enable Urban Flow not simply to be able to develop good tools and so on, but actually to contribute to standards. There's a link to the existing agreed specifications and to the development tools in our collaboration environment. And I won't go through the details of this, but one of our MIM on data representation aims to deal with the challenge that has already been talked about in Chimera, about the fact that we are trying to make sense of data that comes from places with different data formats and different data models. And we've developed a number of three capabilities at the moment to describe what needs to happen so that that can be achieved. And we're looking at a number of requirements for each of those capabilities that you can, so that you can tell, have you managed it? So we're in the process of developing three mechanisms to achieve that interoperability between data, which has different data formats and different data models. One is based on linked data, two using different AI methodologies. And the interesting thing about that, and that's something really for you to think about too, is that we're working initially with the city of Porto to look at specific use cases. And what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks is to have a mimathon where the teams will attempt to address those use cases and see how well they do. And the solutions then will be, Porto will attempt to apply those solutions and see how well they work. If they work really well, that's great. If there's still some things that need to be sorted out, then the teams will go back and try to sort those issues out, so that we'll have at least three different mechanisms that we'll be able to then feed back to cities about how they can tackle these sorts of issues. And what we're obviously trying to do is to use those use cases to come up with some generalities. Just as a quick example, one issue is about open data, metadata, and data model harmonization. And the key issue is about trees that are being collected by two different departments in the council. They may, some are using tree species names, some are using tree names. They're using different attribute descriptions, different units of measure, levels of granularity, and some attributes are present in one data set and missing another. So how do you align them? And so we've got some of the key issues that they've identified and the technical challenges that we need to face in order to meet it. There's one on energy modeling. Again, that's where when a city is trying to bring together clear information about how energy is being provided and used, different providers will have different models and so on to deliver, which they deliver their information. And it's a real challenge to try and align these different sorts of things with formats and different attributes and so on. How do you do that? Open data and mobility, and similar, there's points of interest. There's inconsistency in the way that different organizations and departments in the city capture and describe points of interest. And what we're doing is taking that and a number of other use cases and looking at how our mechanisms that have been proposed, how well they work, and to see in Porto, with Porto's help, how practical they are to implement. And of course, the great invitation in closing here is we've already got quite a lot of good knowledge about how to deal with these challenges, but this is a great opportunity. We'd love to work with each of the cities as part of the pilots to provide us with some of your challenges around integrating data to help Urban Flow, to help you integrate the Urban Flow tools and to help manage the information you need. And if you are able to bring to us those sorts of use cases, then we can work with you to help solve them. But in doing that, that will hopefully help us to provide more information about getting our MIMS even better and even more ready to be rolled out widely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed.